Let's cut the cute and get straight to it. He was never your soulmate, sis. He was your wake-up call in a fitted cap. You didn't meet the one, you met the lesson. The universe doesn't play fair, it plays smart. And when you ignore the signs, it sends a man who feels like home but burns like hell. Welcome, Radiant Rebels, to the realest, most unfiltered session you didn't know you needed. Today, we're not crying over him, we're calling him what he was, a mirror, a test, and your permission slip to level up. So grab your tea, grab your journal, and get ready to unpack the drama, the delusion, and the deep healing that follows when you stop confusing lessons with lifetimes. This is for every woman who thought she found her forever but ended up in a situation that nearly broke her spirit. Let's talk about it. The hardest pill to swallow. Here's the truth no one likes to say out loud: just because it felt deep doesn't mean it was real. Some of y'all are out here calling it love when it was really just a trauma bond dressed up in chemistry and false hope. You mistook intensity for intimacy, and that man? He was never your forever, he was your reflection. He mirrored every wound you didn't want to face, every part of you that still thought love had to hurt to feel real. That wasn't a soulmate connection, sis, that was your shadow in human form. The late-night overthinking, the anxiety every time your phone didn't light up, the way you questioned your worth just to earn a sliver of his attention, that wasn't romance. That was survival mode. But here's the hardest pill to swallow: you let it happen because some part of you didn't believe you deserved better. You thought if you just loved him harder, stayed longer, proved you were ride or die enough, he'd finally choose you. Newsflash, he was never going to. And it's not because you weren't good enough, it's because he was never built for where you're going. He was the earthquake, not the foundation. The chaos that cracked open the version of you that thought you needed a man to feel chosen. You didn't lose love. You lost your own silence. And baby, that's the best thing that could have happened to you. The juicy truth: he wasn't your forever, he was your wake-up call. He came wrapped in charm, smelling like everything you prayed for and speaking your love language like he invented it. But underneath the surface, it was a trap, a beautiful, intoxicating trap. This wasn't a love story. It was a lesson written in red flags you painted white. You were in the toxic garden of desire, and baby, it looked gorgeous at first. Lush attention. Sweet words. Daily texts. You felt seen. Desired. Needed. But what you didn't see were the roots, twisted, hidden, and quietly draining the life out of you. Set the intention right here: fierce healing, bold empowerment, and unapologetic self-love. That's what this is about. No more romanticizing dysfunction. No more rewriting red flags into potential. You're done watering dead things. You're done making excuses for emotionally lazy men. This is the turning point. Take Alana. She met Marcus at her lowest, post-breakup, jobless, rebuilding. He came in like a savior, texting good morning every day, offering to help with bills, whispering how she deserved the world. Within a month, she thought she found her person. But behind the flowers and flattery, there was manipulation. Little comments about her clothes, backhanded compliments, guilt trips disguised as concern. She stopped going out, stopped posting, stopped shining, because dimming her light made him comfortable. It wasn't obvious abuse. It was the slow erosion of her power. That's what these men do. They don't break you in one blow. They chip away at your identity until you forget who you were before them. Then there's Tiana, who dated Julian. Tall, charismatic, the life of the party. He knew exactly what to say to make her feel like the most beautiful woman in the room. But he never made real space for her. Every deep conversation was redirected. Every vulnerable moment met with a joke or silence. She gave him everything, her time, her loyalty, her body, and he gave her breadcrumbs. Weekend visits. Last-minute plans. Empty promises. And when she finally asked for more, he called her too much. Too emotional. Too needy. Classic move. Julian wasn't looking for love. He was looking for worship. She didn't see it at first because the garden looked so damn pretty. That's the dangerous thing about toxic men, they don't come with warning labels. They come with chemistry. Seductive charm that feels like fate. They mirror your desires and play them back to you until you're hooked. But it's all an illusion. A man who truly values you doesn't make you question your worth. He doesn't weaponize your softness. He doesn't punish you for wanting more. These men, Marcus, Julian, the ones like them, they aren't partners. They're mirrors. They expose where you still bleed, where you still doubt yourself, where your boundaries are paper thin. And yes, it hurts. But pain can be a portal. This isn't about dragging him. It's about dragging yourself out of the fantasy. Out of the garden. Out of the grip of men who don't deserve a front row seat to your glow up. You don't owe your loyalty to someone who only showed up for the version of you that didn't know better. You owe it to the woman you're becoming, the one who listens to her gut, who honors her softness, who refuses to be anyone's emotional rehab center. He was the wake-up call, not the dream. He came to trigger the breakdown that would lead to your breakthrough. And whether you crawled out of that relationship sobbing, screaming, or silent, you made it out. That's what matters. You survived the garden. And now, you get to choose something real. Something soft. Something that doesn't ask you to shrink. This is where fierce healing begins. Where the version of you that thought love was earned gets laid to rest. Where the woman who knows her worth takes the mic. You are not hard to love. You were just trying to bloom in poison soil. And baby, that ends today. Storytime 1, Seduced by the Surface. Nia thought she had hit the jackpot. Devin was smooth, silk voice, tailored suits, 5-star taste. Their first date? Private rooftop, chilled champagne, his hand on the small of her back as he told her how rare she was. He didn't just compliment her, he studied her, made her feel like she was one of one. She was fresh out of a messy situationship, vulnerable but hopeful, and Devin played it perfectly. He mirrored her dreams. Talked about building an empire, a family, traveling the world together. Every text, every call, every dinner was like a performance crafted to sweep her off her feet. But something shifted. Slowly. At first, it was subtle. A late reply here. A vague excuse there. Then came the last-minute cancellations. The nights he fell asleep without calling. The sudden mood swings, the clipped tone when she brought up how distant he'd become. She ignored it at first, clinging to the version of him from those first golden weeks. But the mask was slipping. One night, she showed up at his place unannounced. The same flowers she loved were on the counter, but addressed to someone else. No explanation, just silence. He stood there, arms crossed, unbothered, almost annoyed at the inconvenience of being caught. That was the moment. The real Devin stood in front of her, not the curated image, not the sweet-talking dream guy. but the emotionally vacant manipulator who used attention like a weapon. He was never in it to build. He was in it to be adored. The charm was never love, it was bait. And Nia, like so many women, had been seduced by the surface. It wasn't foolishness. It was hope. The hope that this time, it was real. That maybe, just maybe, a man could mean what he said and show up fully. Drop a comment if you've ever been hypnotized by charm but burned by truth. If you saw the cracks but kept painting over them. This is your space. Your reset. Like, subscribe, and share this fierce feminine revival. We're burning the fantasy to build something real. No more illusions. No more masks. This is where your power returns. The Bold Girls Playbook: Behavior, Boundaries, and Benefits. Let's get one thing straight: words are cheap. Behavior is the real currency. A man can say you're his queen, his light, his forever, and still treat you like an option. That's why the first B is behavior. Not what he posts. Not what he promises. What he does, consistently, especially when you're not convenient. Take Shay, for example. She was dating Elijah, on paper, a dream. He checked in every morning, planned creative dates, and told her she was the kind of woman men prayed for. But when she got sick and asked him to grab her some soup on his way over, he brushed it off. Said he had a long day. Then posted himself out at a lounge an hour later. That was the moment it clicked. He loved the title of boyfriend. He loved being adored. But he didn't want to show up, not when it required effort. Behavior doesn't lie. It always reveals intention. The second B is boundaries. And this is where a lot of women trip up, not because they don't have them, but because they don't enforce them. Telling a man what you don't tolerate means nothing if you keep giving him access after he crosses the line. Maya learned this the hard way. She told Andre from the jump she didn't play with inconsistency or secrecy. He agreed, nodded, smiled, and still turned his phone face down every time they were together. She brushed it off for weeks, told herself she didn't want to be that girl. But silence doesn't keep the peace. It builds resentment. One night, while scrolling through Instagram stories, she saw him at dinner with someone else, someone tagged, someone real. That gut punch wasn't about betrayal. It was about self-betrayal. She had made her boundary clear, then abandoned it. Boundaries aren't there to punish men. They exist to protect your peace. And if a man sees your standards as a threat, he was never ready to lead you, only to distract you. The last B? Benefits. And not the transactional kind. We're talking about how the relationship benefits you. Spiritually. Emotionally. Energetically. If you're always pouring, always explaining, always overthinking, what exactly are you gaining? A man is not a reward for patience. He's not your rescue plan. He should be an addition to the already powerful woman you are. When Ava met Terrence, it felt like a win. He was stable, polite, owned his business. But over time, she realized she was the only one investing. Every hard conversation fell on her. Every compromise came from her end. He was comfortable while she was exhausted. Then there's Tiana, who dated Julian. Tall, charismatic, the life of the party. He knew exactly what to say to make her feel like the most beautiful woman in the room. But he never made real space for her. Every deep conversation was redirected. Every vulnerable moment met with a joke or silence. She gave him everything, her time, her loyalty, her body, and he gave her breadcrumbs. Weekend visits. Last-minute plans. Empty promises. And when she finally asked for more, he called her too much. Too emotional. Too needy. Classic move. Julian wasn't looking for love. He was looking for worship. She didn't see it at first because the garden looked so damn pretty. That's the dangerous thing about toxic men, they don't come with warning labels. They come with chemistry. Seductive charm that feels like fate. They mirror your desires and play them back to you until you're hooked. But it's all an illusion. A man who truly values you doesn't make you question your worth. He doesn't weaponize your softness. He doesn't punish you for wanting more. These men, Marcus, Julian, the ones like them, they aren't partners. They're mirrors. They expose where you still bleed, where you still doubt yourself, where your boundaries are paper thin. And yes, it hurts. But pain can be a portal. This isn't about dragging him. It's about dragging yourself out of the fantasy. Out of the garden. Out of the grip of men who don't deserve a front row seat to your glow up. You don't owe your loyalty to someone who only showed up for the version of you that didn't know better. You owe it to the woman you're becoming, the one who listens to her gut, who honors her softness, who refuses to be anyone's emotional rehab center. He was the wake-up call, not the dream. He came to trigger the breakdown that would lead to your breakthrough. And whether you crawled out of that relationship sobbing, screaming, or silent, you made it out. That's what matters. You survived the garden. And now, you get to choose something real. Something soft. Something that doesn't ask you to shrink. This is where fierce healing begins. Where the version of you that thought love was earned gets laid to rest. Where the woman who knows her worth takes the mic. You are not hard to love. You were just trying to bloom in poison soil. And baby, that ends today. Storytime 1, Seduced by the Surface. Nia thought she had hit the jackpot. Devin was smooth, silk voice, tailored suits, 5-star taste. Their first date? Private rooftop, chilled champagne, his hand on the small of her back as he told her how rare she was. He didn't just compliment her, he studied her, made her feel like she was one of one. She was fresh out of a messy situationship, vulnerable but hopeful, and Devin played it perfectly. He mirrored her dreams. Talked about building an empire, a family, traveling the world together. Every text, every call, every dinner was like a performance crafted to sweep her off her feet. But something shifted. Slowly. At first, it was subtle. A late reply here. A vague excuse there. Then came the last-minute cancellations. The nights he fell asleep without calling. The sudden mood swings, the clipped tone when she brought up how distant he'd become. She ignored it at first, clinging to the version of him from those first golden weeks. But the mask was slipping. One night, she showed up at his place unannounced. The same flowers she loved were on the counter, but addressed to someone else. No explanation, just silence. Her anxiety skyrocketed, her joy dimmed, and she started shrinking to keep the peace. That's not a benefit. That's a slow burn into nothingness. If being with someone costs you your energy, your clarity, and your confidence, it's too expensive. This is your bold, sexy dating playbook. No more falling for potential. No more second-guessing your standards. You don't need to explain why you walked away from a man who couldn't match your effort. You don't need permission to raise the bar. Own your power. Claim your boundaries. And protect your peace like it's designer. Because you are the prize. And anyone who makes you feel like you're asking for too much was never offering enough to begin with. Deep dive, behavior, actions that seduce or sabotage. 1 minute he's blowing up your phone with hard eyes and future talk, the next he disappears for 2 days with a dry excuse and a casual "my bad." That's not confusion, that's control. That's not love, it's emotional manipulation. Hot and cold behavior is one of the most seductive and damaging games a man can play. It keeps you chasing the version of him he only shows when he wants something. It's not passion. It's a performance. Denise met Malik at a networking event. He was magnetic, successful, effortlessly charming. He pulled her in with late-night calls, deep convos about purpose, even mentioned wanting kids someday, specifically, with someone like her. She was hooked. He made her feel like a muse. But a few weeks in, the vibe changed. He started replying late, showing up hours after plans, then blaming his crazy schedule. One night, she asked about the woman who kept liking all his photos. He laughed it off, said she was a friend from the past. But a week later, Denise saw them out at brunch, holding hands. When she confronted him, he flipped it. Said she was too emotional, insecure, and needed to chill. What Malik did was classic: manipulate her with fantasy, then gaslight her with guilt. He wasn't emotionally unavailable. He was fully aware of his actions. The seduction wasn't love, it was leverage. Men like that know how to wear the right mask until you're too invested to walk away without breaking your own heart. They don't lie outright. They twist the truth, give you just enough attention to keep you on the hook while keeping their real life out of reach. Every time you try to get clarity, they create more fog. That's not mystery, it's misdirection. Watch how a man moves when you're not feeding his ego. Watch what he does when you say no, when you hold him accountable, when you stop giving him full access to your body and time without emotional depth. If the sweetness fades when the control slips, that's who he really is. It's never about what he says, it's about the patterns. Does he show up when it's inconvenient? Does he take responsibility when he messes up? Or does he flip it on you? If his love is conditional, if the energy only flows when you're quiet, agreeable, and emotionally available on demand, that's not a relationship, that's manipulation with good lighting. This kind of behavior doesn't always come from loud, obvious narcissists. Sometimes it's the healing man, the one who says he's just getting out of something heavy. The one who tells you he's not ready but doesn't want to lose you. He wants the perks of your presence with none of the responsibility. He wants access without commitment. The most dangerous men aren't the ones who are openly toxic, they're the ones who come off as honest but use vulnerability like a weapon. They drop just enough pain to make you feel special for staying, for understanding, for proving you're not like the others. But the truth is, you're being slowly conditioned to lower your standards and call it love. Pay attention. His behavior is the blueprint. If you constantly feel anxious, confused, or like you're doing too much, those are symptoms of misalignment, not love. The seduction is real, but so is the sabotage. And the moment you stop romanticizing the mixed signals and start reading them as warnings, everything changes. You stop waiting for closure and start choosing clarity. You stop chasing consistency from inconsistent men and start demanding emotional safety. You stop breaking your own heart trying to make him look like love when all he's ever been is the lesson. Storytime 2, when charm turns toxic, the seductive lies you deserve to see through. Gabrielle was always the one who saw the best in people. She had a soft heart and a belief that if you just loved someone enough, they'd rise into the man you saw in them. So when she met Caleb, she wasn't deterred by the fact that he was still finding himself. He didn't have a stable job, wasn't consistent with communication, and had a string of vague ex-girlfriend stories that didn't fully add up. But he said all the right things. He said he was working on himself. Said Gabrielle made him want to be better. Said he'd never met a woman with her kind of soul. She poured into him like he was a garden. Encouraged his business ideas. Helped him update his resume. Bought groceries when he said his paycheck was delayed. She held him through emotional breakdowns and believed his silence was stress, not disinterest. Her friends raised eyebrows, but Gabrielle kept defending him. He's just misunderstood, she'd say. He needs support, not judgment. And deep down, she believed that her love could unlock his potential. But Caleb never actually evolved. He got comfortable. The more she gave, the less he tried. He became emotionally entitled and physically distant. Every disagreement became her fault. If she cried, she was too sensitive. If she pulled back, she was abandoning him when he needed her most. One night, she found texts to another woman. His response? "You pushed me there. I didn't feel safe with you anymore." It was the moment everything shattered. Not just the relationship, but the illusion. Gabrielle had been in love with potential. She had fallen for a fantasy version of Caleb, not the man who stood in front of her every day showing her who he really was. And by the time she realized it, she had lost herself. Her light was dimmed, her confidence cracked, her energy drained. That's what charm can do when it's weaponized. It draws you in gently, makes you feel chosen, and then slowly becomes the rope that binds you to a man who never planned on growing. Potential is not the prize. It's the bait. The real prize is partnership, a man who's already doing the work, not one who expects you to carry him across the finish line. Charm without consistency is manipulation. Passion without respect is chaos. And love without effort is a lie. So many women have been conditioned to think healing a man is part of the journey. That if you endure enough, prove yourself enough, stand by him through all his demons, he'll one day reward you with the version of him you believed in. But the truth is, you can waste years waiting for a man to become someone he never intended to be. Partnership doesn't feel like guessing. It doesn't feel like proving. In for a man ever again. Deep dive, boundaries, you're unbreakable, sexy armor. Boundaries are not about shutting people out. They're about keeping your power in. They are the velvet ropes around your throne, not because you're cold, but because you know your worth. Real boundaries don't beg for understanding. They don't explain themselves 100 different ways hoping to sound nice. They are quiet, clear, and rooted in self-respect. And if someone can't handle them, they were never meant to sit at your table in the first place. Natalie was the girl who always gave the benefit of the doubt. She didn't want to seem difficult or too much. So when Amir started showing up late, making passive-aggressive jokes in front of her friends, and dismissing things that mattered to her, she brushed it off. She'd been taught that being a good partner meant compromise. So she compromised, again and again, until there was barely anything left untouched. Her time, her space, her body, her voice. Everything was up for negotiation, and Amir knew it. Every time she tried to speak up, he spun it back on her. Told her she was making drama, being too emotional, always finding something wrong. It wasn't until the night he read her journal and used her most vulnerable confessions during an argument that she snapped out of it. That was the line. The final violation. She told him to leave, and for the first time, her no didn't come with a smile or an explanation. Just steal. Because a boundary without enforcement is just a suggestion. And Natalie had finally remembered who the hell she was. Boundaries are not cruel. They are clarity. They are declarations of how you will and will not be treated. And the right people will respect them effortlessly, because they respect you. They won't test them, push against them, or punish you for having them. They'll appreciate the safety your standards create. The most dangerous myth women are fed is that being desirable means being agreeable. That we have to keep the peace, go with the flow, accommodate every shift in energy just to hold on to love. But love that requires you to abandon yourself isn't love, it's bondage. And boundaries are how you break free. Camille used to believe that setting limits would push men away. And you know what? She was right. It did. The wrong ones. The ones who wanted access without accountability. The ones who expected her to stay silent when things hurt. To pretend she was okay when she was breaking. When she started drawing lines, no more unannounced visits, no more late-night hookups without real conversation, no more emotional dumping with no effort to change, those men scattered. And that was the gift. Because the ones who leave when you raise your standards were never planning to meet them anyway. Every time you say no with your chest, you build a new layer of armor. Not the kind that hardens your heart, but the kind that protects your peace. You don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need to beg to be honored. You just need to mean it. To hold the line. To know that your love is precious, and access to you is a privilege, not a default setting. Speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. Say what you mean the first time. Stop translating your pain into politeness. You are not difficult. You are not intimidating. You are clear. And clarity is divine. The more you honor your own boundaries, the more you attract people who don't require you to explain why you have them in the first place. That is the shift. That is the glow up. That is how you stop surviving relationships and start choosing them from a place of wholeness, not hunger. Storytime 3: The Power of Saying No and Watching Respect Bloom. Janelle had always been the peacekeeper. The girl who smoothed things over, laughed at things that weren't funny, and stayed quiet to avoid rocking the boat. But by the time she met Darius, something in her was different. She was tired of performing, tired of shrinking, tired of bending over backward just to be half-loved. So when Darius came around with his flirtatious smile and smooth lines, she was intrigued but cautious. He loved to test limits. Harmless jokes about her outfits. Subtle jabs about how independent women always end up alone. At first, she rolled her eyes and kept it cute. But inside, she was clocking everything. Then came the night he invited her to a last-minute dinner. She had already told him she had plans. Self-care night, book in hand, hair masked up, candles lit. But he texted, "I'll be there in 20. You can change your plans for me, right?" That was the trigger. A few months earlier, she would have caved. She would have wiped off her mask, thrown on a dress, and convinced herself it was no big deal. But this time? She responded clearly, "No. I already told you I'm unavailable tonight. Enjoy your evening." He didn't like it. Tried to guilt trip her, called her rigid, said she was making it hard to build something real. But she didn't budge. She turned off her phone and poured herself a glass of wine. And something shifted, not just in him, but in her. The next morning, his tone was different. He apologized. He said he respected her clarity, her time, the way she stuck to her word. Whether he meant it or not didn't matter. What mattered was that she meant it. She had drawn the line, and instead of losing something, she had gained self-respect. That was the moment Janelle realized power doesn't always come in loud declarations. Sometimes, it's a soft but solid no, a refusal to be reshaped for someone else's convenience. A decision to honor yourself, even if it costs you a little attention. Because any love that requires you to lower your standards isn't love, it's a negotiation with your own dignity. Saying no doesn't make you difficult. It makes you rooted. Grounded in your value. If a man sees your boundaries as a threat, he was never planning to love you in the first place, he was planning to control you. But when a man sees your no and respects it, that's when real partnership has a chance. Respect doesn't bloom from silence or submission, it grows when you hold the line, even when it's uncomfortable. Have you ever been tempted to lower your standards to keep someone around? Speak it. Share it. Because the more we name it, the less we carry the shame. And the more we own our no, the more magnetic our yes becomes. Deep dive, benefits, what's the juice you're really getting? A relationship is supposed to elevate you, not drain you. It should be the spotlight that makes you shine brighter, not the shadow that dims your glow. When you're with the right person, you feel energized, inspired, and deeply seen. But if you're constantly exhausted, questioning your worth, or shrinking to fit their mood, that's a clear sign something's off. Take Simone's story. She dated Carter for over a year, thinking she had found stability at last. On paper, he was the good guy, steady job, polite family, solid reputation. But behind closed doors, it was a different story. Every conversation left her second-guessing herself. Carter had this way of making her doubts seem like her problem, not his lack of effort. He didn't cheer on her dreams, often dismissed her passions, and expected her to adjust her life around his needs. After months of feeling invisible, Simone realized the relationship was less of a partnership and more like an emotional sinkhole. Instead of being the woman who thrived, she became the woman who survived. Contrast that with Lila, who met Andre and felt an immediate shift. He was her biggest fan, celebrating every win no matter how small. When she launched her side hustle, he was there, connecting her with clients, brainstorming ideas, and reminding her daily that her success was their success. Even on her bad days, he held space without judgment. With Andre, Lila didn't have to pretend or hide parts of herself. She was whole, unapologetically bold, and fueled by his genuine support. The juice you're getting in a relationship isn't just about the good times or chemistry. It's about how you feel when the shine fades, when real life crashes in. Does he lift you up or weigh you down? Does he make space for your growth or demand you stay the same? If your relationship feels like a constant battle to protect your energy, that's not love. That's a slow leak in your soul. Women often mistake the thrill of chasing someone's attention for the fulfillment of true partnership. They confuse being tolerated with being treasured. But love isn't about endurance, it's about enrichment. It should add layers to your happiness, not subtract pieces of your peace. When the benefits are real, you know it in your bones. Your confidence grows, your vision expands, and your heart feels safe enough to take risks. If you're holding on to a relationship where you're more drained than delighted, it's time to reconsider your worth. The right man won't just want you, he'll want your light to blaze unapologetically. He won't dim his shine to compete with yours. He'll be the fuel, not the fire extinguisher. And that difference, that clarity, is what transforms heartbreak into healing, lessons into liberation. Storytime 4, From Drained to Divine, Choosing Love That Lifts. Tasha used to believe that love meant sacrifice, that giving everything to a man, even the parts of herself she cherished most, was just part of the deal. When she met Raymond, she was ready to give it all. He was charming, attentive, and made promises that sounded like a fairy tale. But as the months passed, the energy in the relationship shifted. Raymond demanded her time, her emotional labor, and her patience, but gave very little in return. Every time she felt drained, she told herself it was normal, that love required hard work and compromise. One evening, after working a double shift and rushing home to take care of his needs, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. The tired eyes, the forced smile, the hunched shoulders, it hit her. This wasn't thriving. This was survival. The love she was giving was siphoning her spirit dry. That night, she made a decision. She refused to settle for anything less than a love that lifted her up, that made her feel like the queen she truly was. Enter Malik. When Malik walked into her life, everything changed. He didn't just say he cared, he showed up. When she talked about her dreams of opening a boutique, Malik wasn't just supportive, he strategized with her, offered resources, and celebrated every small win like it was his own. On tough days, he held space without judgment. When she needed rest, he encouraged it without guilt. The love she shared with Malik wasn't a drain, it was an infusion of strength. It made her want to be bigger, bolder, and more unapologetically herself. Love that lifts doesn't ask you to disappear. It doesn't demand you dim your shine or silence your voice. It's a partnership where both people rise, fueled by mutual respect, passion, and unwavering support. It's the kind of love that transforms exhaustion into energy and survival into celebration. Reflect on your own story. Are you thriving or just surviving? Because when love lifts you, every part of your life starts to bloom, your confidence, your purpose, your joy. That is the love worth fighting for and fiercely protecting. Anything less is just practice for the real thing. Extracting the lesson, turning heartbreak into hot self-love. Heartbreak hits like a tidal wave, sudden, overwhelming, and all-consuming. But what most don't realize is that the aftermath is where transformation begins. After her painful breakup with Jason, Keisha felt shattered. He was the man she thought would build a life with her, the one who whispered promises late into the night. But the truth came crashing down, Jason was more invested in his freedom than in their future. The nights she spent alone, replaying every argument and every silence, felt endless. But in that quiet pain, something fierce began to stir. Keisha flipped the script. Instead of letting heartbreak consume her, she used it as fuel. She stopped chasing the version of Jason that never existed and started chasing her own glow-up. She picked up the journal she had abandoned, joined that dance class she always wanted to try, and rebuilt her mornings around affirmations that reminded her of her worth. The woman who emerged wasn't broken, she was battle-tested and beautiful, hotter than ever because her love was now unapologetically self-directed. Heartbreak gave Keisha permission to drop toxic love without guilt. She realized that holding on to someone who didn't value her was like carrying a weight she never signed up for. Every late-night text ignored, every promise broken became a lesson in what she would no longer tolerate. She wasn't just healing, she was ascending. This kind of hot self-love isn't selfish. It's revolutionary. It means setting standards that demand respect, boundaries that safeguard your peace, and a heart fierce enough to protect itself from anything less than genuine. When you turn heartbreak into your power move, you stop being a victim of love's mistakes and become the architect of your own happiness. You don't need permission to walk away from what drains you. You don't need anyone's approval to choose yourself first. Because the greatest love story you'll ever write is the one you have with yourself, bold, radiant, and unapologetically fierce. Storytime 5, My Rise from Ashes, How Heartbreak Birthed My Boldness. After the dust settled from her breakup with Andre, Maya felt like she had lost everything: her confidence, her trust, even her sense of self. Andre had been the man who promised the world but showed up with empty hands. Their love was intense, full of late-night fights and fleeting apologies, a roller coaster that left Maya dizzy and depleted. When he finally walked away without a backward glance, she was left standing in the rubble of a dream that wasn't hers to hold. But in that silence, something unexpected happened. Instead of crumbling, Maya started rebuilding, this time on her terms. She refused to let Andre's betrayal define her story. She threw herself into reclaiming her identity, rediscovering passions she'd buried to keep the peace. The art classes she'd quit, the books she'd stopped reading, the solo trips she'd postponed, all became acts of rebellion and rebirth. Her mornings became rituals of power, journaling her truth, moving her body like it was sacred, speaking affirmations that peeled away the shame and fear. She learned to say no without flinching, to walk away from anything that didn't serve her growth. And with every boundary set, every self-love practice embraced, Maya felt a fierce, untamed boldness rise from the ashes. Heartbreak didn't break her, it baptized her into a new version of herself, one that refused to settle for less and demanded her own respect first. Andre's exit wasn't an ending, it was the prologue to her fiercest chapter yet. The woman Maya became wasn't just healed, she was unstoppable. She understood that her worth wasn't tied to a man's validation but rooted deep in the power she claimed every day. This is the kind of transformation that turns pain into purpose, loss into liberation. When you rise from ashes like Maya, your boldness isn't just a shield, it's a beacon. A signal to every woman watching that heartbreak is not your cage, it's your call to rise higher than ever before. Discernment and self-trust. Your inner goddess knows best. Discernment isn't just a fancy word, it's your secret weapon, your internal compass that keeps you from stumbling into the same traps over and over again. It's that quiet voice in your gut that whispers warnings when a man's words don't match his actions, that alerts you when the rose-colored glasses start to slip. But too many women silence that voice, doubting their instincts because they want the love so badly they ignore the red flags. What they don't realize is that their inner goddess is always watching, always waiting for them to trust her. Look at Simone. After dating Rashad for 6 months, she started feeling uneasy. The late-night calls stopped, plans got cancelled, and when she asked for clarity, Rashad spun stories that didn't add up. Her friends saw it, but Simone told herself to be patient, to give him space. Then one night, her gut screamed so loud she couldn't ignore it. Rashad was tagged in another woman's post, smiling and looking comfortable. Instead of confronting him immediately, Simone sat with her discomfort. She asked herself the hard questions and realized her instincts had been right all along. She trusted that internal warning, and the moment she did, she walked away without looking back. Self-trust means updating your personal standard operating procedures, the unspoken rules you live by when it comes to dating and love. It means no longer settling for maybe, I'll try, or I'm working on it. It means demanding honesty, consistency, and respect from the start. If a man can't meet you there, you don't rewrite your standards for him, you rewrite your exit plan. Kendra learned this after her messy relationship with Devin. He was all charm and promise, but his actions told a different story. When Kendra finally started trusting her instincts instead of his sweet talk, she realized she'd been settling for crumbs. She decided to raise her bar and communicate her deal breakers clearly: no late-night disappearances, no vague explanations, no disrespect. And guess what? The moment she owned her standards with fierce self-trust, the kind of men who respected her boundaries showed up. Not because she changed who she was, but because she finally trusted who she was. Your inner goddess knows best. She has the clarity and strength to guide you through the fog of confusing feelings and conflicting signals. Listen when she whispers and roar when she commands. When you trust her fully, you don't just attract better love, you become better at loving yourself fiercely, boldly, and without apology. Storytime 6, Trusting My Gut Saved Me from a Lifetime of Regret. Tiffany had always been a woman who wore her heart on her sleeve, but when Marcus entered her life, that soft heart met a new kind of strength. From the start, something about Marcus didn't sit right. He was charismatic, with a magnetic smile and a way of making her feel like she was the only woman in the room. Yet beneath the surface, there were cracks, small lies about where he was, evasive answers about his past, and a restless energy that kept her on edge. Her friends warned her, but she was drawn to the fantasy he painted. Still, her intuition whispered warnings, quiet at first, then louder every time she caught inconsistencies. One night, Marcus promised to come to her birthday dinner. Hours passed with no word. When he finally texted, it was a vague apology and a flimsy excuse. Tiffany's gut screamed. She checked his social media and found him tagged at a party, no mention of her or the night she thought they were sharing. The betrayal stung, but it was her own inner voice that truly cut through the noise. That instinct didn't just save her from pain, it saved her from years of heartbreak and lies. Instead of ignoring her gut or making excuses, Tiffany leaned into it. She confronted Marcus with confidence and clarity, no begging, no tears, just truth. She walked away from a relationship that wasn't built on honesty, knowing that the power she held was in trusting herself first. That decision wasn't easy, but it was liberating. It freed her from the chains of doubt and gave her back control of her story. Trusting your intuition isn't just about dodging toxic people, it's about honoring the goddess inside who knows your worth before anyone else ever can. When your gut speaks, it's not trying to scare you, it's trying to protect you. That fierce, unshakable voice is your fiercest protector in a world that often tries to convince you otherwise. Every time you listen, you get closer to the love you deserve, and further from the heartbreak you don't. Recognizing toxic patterns, spotting the wolf in Lux. Toxicity doesn't always come wrapped in rags and anger. Sometimes it's disguised in designer suits, polished smiles, and the kind of charm that makes you lower your guard without even realizing it. That's the wolf in Lux, the man who looks like a dream but carries the kind of darkness that slowly suffocates your spirit. It starts small, a dismissive comment masked as a joke, a subtle undermining of your confidence, a forget what you heard that rewrites your reality. That's gaslighting, the cruel art of making you question your own mind and feelings until you start doubting the very truth of your experience. Jasmine dated Leo, who had a booming career, a perfect Instagram feed, and a way of making her feel like the center of his universe, until the control started creeping in. It wasn't violent or loud. It was the kind of control that showed up in the way he monitored her texts, insisted on knowing her every move, and made her feel guilty for spending time with friends without him. When Jasmine confronted him, he flipped the script, accusing her of being paranoid and too sensitive. The emotional unavailability wasn't in his absence but in his refusal to be vulnerable. Leo could talk about love, but he never showed up when it mattered. He kept her on edge, constantly guessing, always proving herself. Early warning signs like inconsistent communication, frequent blame shifting, and emotional coldness are not just red flags, they are neon signs screaming run. When Eric started showing up late for dates, canceling plans last minute, and then acting like she was overreacting, Mia should have recognized the pattern. Instead, she stayed, trying to fill the gaps with explanations and forgiveness. The harder she tried, the more distant he became. His love was conditional, given only when she played the part of the perfect girlfriend, silent and compliant. Spotting these patterns early is survival. It means paying attention to how you feel in the presence of a man, not just how he looks or what he says. Does he respect your boundaries or test them? Does he take responsibility or shift blame? Is his love consistent, or do you find yourself always wondering where you stand? Toxic men are masters of disguise, but your intuition is sharper than any mask they wear. Drop the wolf in Lux fast. Your energy is sacred. Don't trade your peace for promises or settle for confusion wrapped in charisma. When you spot the signs, gaslighting, control, emotional unavailability, don't stay to prove your worth. Leave and build your worth in spaces where love feels freeing, not like a cage. Your vibe deserves protection from the very start. Storytime number 7, How I Broke Free from Toxic Allure. I remember the moment everything clicked. For months, I was caught in a cycle with Julian, the kind of man who dazzled with his smooth talk and designer clothes but held a darkness I tried desperately to ignore. At first, Julian's world felt glamorous. He whisked me away to rooftop dinners, introduced me to his influential friends, and showered me with attention that felt intoxicating. But behind the glitter was a man who controlled every part of my life with invisible chains. Julian's gaslighting was subtle but relentless. He'd deny things he said minutes before, make me question my memory, and dismiss my feelings as crazy or overdramatic. Every time I tried to set a boundary, he'd pivot the blame back to me, telling me I was too sensitive or not supportive enough. The emotional unavailability cut the deepest. Julian talked about love like a poet, but when I needed him, he was cold, distant, and unavailable, emotionally checked out behind that polished facade. One night, after a particularly harsh argument where he accused me of being paranoid for wanting honesty, I found myself sitting alone in my apartment, heart racing, wondering how I got here. That's when I started paying attention to the whisper inside me, the one telling me I deserved better. The quiet voice reminding me that no amount of charm or luxury could mask the poison I was swallowing daily. Breaking free wasn't easy. Julian made leaving feel like a loss, but it was the greatest gain of my life. I started reclaiming my power by setting firm boundaries and learning to trust my intuition again. I surrounded myself with friends who reminded me of my worth and sought healing in therapy and self-care rituals that grounded me in my truth. The allure of Julian's toxic charm faded as my clarity grew. That freedom tastes like fire and renewal. It's the liberation from pretending to be someone who tolerates less than she deserves. It's the courage to choose yourself over the fantasy. And it's the promise that you will never settle for being dimmed by anyone's shadow again. My story is proof that the most powerful love you'll ever have is the love you give yourself when you refuse to be trapped by toxic allure. Attachment styles, the sexy science of your love habits. Love isn't just about chemistry or timing, it's deeply wired into the way you relate to connection, trust, and vulnerability. Attachment styles reveal the patterns that drive your reactions and choices in relationships, and knowing yours is like unlocking a secret code to your heart. Anxious, avoidant, secure, each style comes with its own set of desires, fears, and habits that shape how you give and receive love. Take Nia, for example. She's classic anxious attachment. When she's in love, she dives in headfirst, craving constant reassurance and fearing abandonment. With Marcus, she would read every text, analyze every pause, and panic when he didn't reply fast enough. Her world spun around his attention, and when it wavered, she spiraled into self-doubt and desperation. Nia's anxiety wasn't weakness, it was a signal, her heart wired to seek safety by hyper-focusing on connection. But without awareness, it felt like a trap, pushing Marcus away even as she clung tighter. Then there's Elijah, who exemplifies avoidant attachment. He's the man who loves fiercely but fears intimacy like fire. With Maya, he kept his distance emotionally, afraid of losing control or being vulnerable. He'd pull away when things got too close, leaving Maya feeling abandoned and confused. Elijah's avoidance style wasn't about lack of love, it was protection, a defense mechanism forged by past wounds that told him to stay safe by staying distant. Without understanding, his pull away became a silent barrier, leaving Maya caught in a cycle of chasing and retreating. The secure attachment style, like Simone's, is the sweet spot, balanced, confident, and able to navigate closeness and independence without fear or over-reliance. Simone trusts herself and her partner, communicates openly, and handles conflict with grace. This isn't about perfection but about self-awareness and emotional maturity, the result of healing and growth. When you understand your attachment style, you gain clarity on why you do what you do in love. It's power because it removes blame, replaces confusion with insight, and guides you toward healthier patterns. It shows you what wounds need healing, what fears to face, and how to break free from repeating toxic cycles. Understanding your heart's wiring is the first step to rewriting your love story, not as a victim of old habits but as a fierce, informed queen crafting relationships that nourish rather than deplete. Knowing your style is sexy because it means you're owning your love journey with eyes wide open. It means choosing growth over pain, awareness over autopilot. And when you move with that kind of self-trust, every relationship you enter transforms, from chaotic to conscious, from draining to deeply fulfilling. Story time: breaking chains, owning my body, reclaiming my pleasure. Alicia's journey into love was tangled in the shadows of her childhood. Growing up in a home where boundaries were blurred and her needs dismissed, she learned early on to suppress her voice and put others first to survive. That survival mode carried into her adult relationships, where saying no felt like betrayal, and her worth was tied to how much she could give without complaint. Men like Darren saw her softness and tested it, pushing limits she was conditioned to accept. With Darren, the lines weren't clear. He flirted with control disguised as affection, pushing her to ignore her discomfort to keep peace. When Alicia tried to speak up about her boundaries, she felt guilty, as if her feelings were wrong or excessive. Her childhood wounds whispered that love was about sacrifice, not self-respect, and she carried those chains deep inside. The turning point came when Alicia started therapy and confronted the truth: those old scars didn't define her worth or her capacity to demand respect. She learned that reclaiming her body and pleasure was an act of rebellion and healing. Saying no became a radical declaration, a reclaiming of the power stolen by years of silence. She began to set fierce boundaries, no longer tolerating being touched or spoken to in ways that made her flinch. With each boundary, Alicia peeled away the layers of shame and fear, stepping into a bold, unapologetic woman who owned her desires without apology. Her relationship with Darren couldn't survive this transformation. He pushed back, unable to accept the new Alicia who refused to be anyone's second choice or secret. But Alicia didn't falter. She walked away, stronger and more radiant, knowing that true love starts with owning your body, your voice, and your pleasure. Take Nia, for example. She's classic anxious attachment. When she's in love, she dives in headfirst, craving constant reassurance and fearing abandonment. With Marcus, she would read every text, analyze every pause, and panic when he didn't reply fast enough. Her world spun around his attention, and when it wavered, she spiraled into self-doubt and desperation. Nia's anxiety wasn't weakness, it was a signal, her heart wired to seek safety by hyper-focusing on connection. But without awareness, it felt like a trap, pushing Marcus away even as she clung tighter. Then there's Elijah, who exemplifies avoidant attachment. He's the man who loves fiercely but fears intimacy like fire. With Maya, he kept his distance emotionally, afraid of losing control or being vulnerable. He'd pull away when things got too close, leaving Maya feeling abandoned and confused. Elijah's avoidance style wasn't about lack of love, it was protection, a defense mechanism forged by past wounds that told him to stay safe by staying distant. Without understanding, his pull away became a silent barrier, leaving Maya caught in a cycle of chasing and retreating. The secure attachment style, like Simone's, is the sweet spot, balanced, confident, and able to navigate closeness and independence without fear or over-reliance. Simone trusts herself and her partner, communicates openly, and handles conflict with grace. This isn't about perfection but about self-awareness and emotional maturity, the result of healing and growth. When you understand your attachment style, you gain clarity on why you do what you do in love. It's power because it removes blame, replaces confusion with insight, and guides you toward healthier patterns. It shows you what wounds need healing, what fears to face, and how to break free from repeating toxic cycles. Understanding your heart's wiring is the first step to rewriting your love story, not as a victim of old habits but as a fierce, informed queen crafting relationships that nourish rather than deplete. Knowing your style is sexy because it means you're owning your love journey with eyes wide open. It means choosing growth over pain, awareness over autopilot. And when you move with that kind of self-trust, every relationship you enter transforms, from chaotic to conscious, from draining to deeply fulfilling. Story time: breaking chains, owning my body, reclaiming my pleasure. Alicia's journey into love was tangled in the shadows of her childhood. Growing up in a home where boundaries were blurred and her needs dismissed, she learned early on to suppress her voice and put others first to survive. That survival mode carried into her adult relationships, where saying no felt like betrayal, and her worth was tied to how much she could give without complaint. Men like Darren saw her softness and tested it, pushing limits she was conditioned to accept. With Darren, the lines weren't clear. He flirted with control disguised as affection, pushing her to ignore her discomfort to keep peace. When Alicia tried to speak up about her boundaries, she felt guilty, as if her feelings were wrong or excessive. Her childhood wounds whispered that love was about sacrifice, not self-respect, and she carried those chains deep inside. The turning point came when Alicia started therapy and confronted the truth: those old scars didn't define her worth or her capacity to demand respect. She learned that reclaiming her body and pleasure was an act of rebellion and healing. Saying no became a radical declaration, a reclaiming of the power stolen by years of silence. She began to set fierce boundaries, no longer tolerating being touched or spoken to in ways that made her flinch. With each boundary, Alicia peeled away the layers of shame and fear, stepping into a bold, unapologetic woman who owned her desires without apology. Her relationship with Darren couldn't survive this transformation. He pushed back, unable to accept the new Alicia who refused to be anyone's second choice or secret. But Alicia didn't falter. She walked away, stronger and more radiant, knowing that true love starts with owning your body, your voice, and your pleasure. Healing childhood wounds is messy and raw, but it's also the gateway to sexy boundaries that protect and empower. It's about rewriting the script, breaking free from the past to create a love life that's vibrant, authentic, and fiercely yours. Every step of reclaiming yourself is a victory, a declaration that you are more than your history, you are a goddess rewriting her story on her terms. Practical tools: your sexy, smart playbook for discernment. Discernment isn't just a feeling, it's a skill you build and sharpen every day. Crafting your personal standard operating procedures means setting standards that don't whisper but shout, "I'm worth it." It's about defining exactly what you will accept, what you won't tolerate, and how you expect to be treated. This isn't about perfection or rigidity, it's about owning your power with clarity and confidence. Take Simone's playbook. After a series of confusing relationships with men like Aaron and Devin, who were inconsistent and vague, she decided to rewrite her rules. Simone created a list of non-negotiables: honesty, respect for her time, clear communication, and emotional availability. She refused to settle for anything less, and that clarity changed her dating game. Suddenly, the men who matched her energy showed up. The ones who didn't disappeared fast. Her SOPs became a filter, protecting her energy and attracting quality. Journaling is a powerful way to connect with your deepest desires and unearth hidden deal breakers. Write about what makes you feel alive and what drains you. Reflect on past relationships and identify patterns. What were the warning signs you ignored? What boundaries did you struggle to enforce? These insights become your roadmap. For example, Mia realized through journaling that she repeatedly tolerated last-minute cancellations and emotional unavailability because she feared being alone. Once she named that fear, she was able to confront it and raise her standards. Communication is the backbone of fierce boundaries. When setting limits, speak with boldness and precision. Instead of "I guess it's okay if you're late," say, "I expect punctuality because my time is valuable." When a man like Jordan tries to gaslight or guilt trip you, respond with calm firmness, "I'm not here to debate my boundaries. If you can't respect them, this isn't going to work." Use I statements that own your feelings and needs without apology. Keep it simple, direct, and unwavering. Your playbook isn't about building walls, it's about creating velvet ropes that protect your throne. When you know your worth and communicate it clearly, you don't have to fight for respect. You command it. Every standard you set is a step toward the love that fuels your fire instead of dousing it. This is how you move through love with power, grace, and unapologetic self-love. Empowerment through self-love, the ultimate sexy glow-up. Loving yourself like a queen isn't just a feel-good mantra, it's a transformative force that changes everything about how you experience love and life. When you step into your self-love fully, your entire love landscape shifts. You stop chasing validation because you own it. You attract partners who see you for your brilliance, not your availability. You walk with a confidence that turns heads and hearts alike. Take Vanessa's story. After years of struggling to hold on to relationships with men like Caleb and Marcus, both of whom drained her emotionally and questioned her worth, she reached a breaking point. Vanessa decided to flip the script, diving deep into radical self-love. She began every morning with affirmations: "I am worthy of love that lifts me, my boundaries protect my peace, I am magnetic because I honor myself." These weren't empty words, they were the building blocks of a new reality. The mindset shifts were even more powerful. Vanessa stopped apologizing for her needs, stopped explaining her worth to anyone. She cultivated a fierce inner dialogue that silenced doubt and fueled her boldness. With each step, she became more magnetic, not because she changed who she was, but because she stopped dimming her light to fit someone else's shadow. Her glow-up was undeniable. Where once she tolerated disrespect, she now commanded reverence. The men who came around weren't just attracted to her beauty, they were drawn to the unapologetic power she radiated. Vanessa wasn't just dating, she was rewriting the rules of love on her terms. This kind of self-love is your ultimate power play. It's not about vanity, it's about honoring your whole self, flaws, fire, and all. When you claim your sexy worth, you don't just become irresistible, you become unstoppable. The energy you put into loving yourself is the magnet that pulls in the love you deserve and repels anything less. Storytime 9: How Self-Love Made Me Magnetic and Unstoppable. I used to be the woman who bent over backward to keep a man's attention, especially with Jordan, whose charm was a drug I couldn't quit. I tolerated his neglect, made excuses for his silence, and lost pieces of myself trying to hold on. But one day, after a brutal fight where I realized I was begging for crumbs, something inside snapped. I decided to love myself the way I'd always wanted someone else to. I started small, setting a morning routine filled with affirmations, journaling about what I truly wanted, and creating boundaries that I refused to compromise. I stopped answering texts immediately. I stopped chasing plans that didn't excite me. And most importantly, I stopped apologizing for my standards. With every act of self-love, I felt more fierce, more radiant, more whole. Before long, everything changed. The men who didn't respect me faded away, and those who recognized my worth stepped forward. Jordan became a memory, replaced by someone who saw me as the queen I am. My confidence wasn't just surface deep, it was a fire burning from the inside out. Self-love made me magnetic, unstoppable, and finally free. When to walk away, recognizing when it's time to slay solo. There comes a moment when you look at a relationship and realize it's no longer serving your energy, your growth, or your peace. Recognizing that moment isn't weakness, it's the ultimate act of self-respect and power. Walking away is not failure, it's the queen reclaiming her throne. When a man like Devin shows up late consistently, dismisses your feelings, or makes you feel less than vibrant, he's killing your vibe. When the excitement turns to exhaustion, and every interaction drains instead of delights, it's time to slay solo. Jada found herself stuck in this painful cycle with Devin. She loved the memories of who he used to be, the dreams they once shared, but the present was full of broken promises and cold silences. She noticed how her friend's laughter felt distant when she was around him, how her creativity and ambition dimmed in his shadow. The signs were there: his refusal to meet her halfway, the emotional unavailability, and the subtle ways he chipped away at her confidence. Despite her love for him, Jada understood that staying meant sacrificing herself. Preparing to leave is more than packing a bag. It's an emotional revolution. Jada spent nights journaling through her fears and affirmations, building a mental fortress of strength. She confided in her tribe, who reminded her of her worth and cheered her on. She made practical plans, saving money, lining up support, and creating boundaries that protected her from being pulled back into old patterns. Her exit wasn't rushed or messy, it was a graceful, fierce reclaiming of her life. Walking away with grace and power means refusing to burn bridges but refusing to burn yourself either. It means holding your head high even when your heart aches, knowing that your peace is priceless. When you leave a relationship that no longer serves you, you create space for love that fuels your fire instead of snuffing it out. You remind yourself that your vibe is sacred, and only those who honor it deserve a seat at your table. Slaying solo is not loneliness, it's liberation. It's the boldest, most beautiful declaration that you are worthy of joy on your terms. When you recognize the signs and prepare to walk away, you're not losing, you're winning the greatest prize, yourself. Unleashing your radiance, the power of daily rituals. True transformation isn't a one-time event, it's a daily practice. The women who shine brightest don't stumble into greatness overnight, they build it with intentional rituals that fuel their mind, body, and spirit. These rituals are your secret weapons, grounding you in your worth and reminding you every day that you are deserving of love that honors you. Take Simone, who started each morning with a simple but powerful routine, a few minutes of deep breathing, speaking affirmations that rewired her mindset, and journaling to clear mental clutter. This wasn't just self-care, it was self-command. It helped her step into the day with clarity and confidence, armor against the doubts and chaos that once threatened to pull her off course. For Maya, it was movement, dancing in her living room, yoga at dawn, walks that reconnected her to her body's strength and sensuality. This physical connection became a fierce reminder that her body was hers to love, respect, and protect. Rituals also include how you set boundaries daily. Saying no when you mean it, turning off the phone when you need space, and choosing people and experiences that elevate rather than drain you. These actions, small on their own, compound into a powerful energy that radiates self-love and commands respect. They tell the universe, and yourself, that you are not settling, not shrinking, not dimming for anyone. Your daily rituals become the foundation of your radiance. They transform heartbreak into healing, doubt into self-trust, and fear into fierce freedom. When you commit to these practices, you don't just survive love, you become a magnet for the kind of connection that celebrates the queen you are. Make your rituals non-negotiable. They are your declaration that you are worth the time, effort, and devotion you give yourself. This is the daily glow-up that no man can give you, because it comes from the one true source of power, you. Drop your truth in the comments, own the lessons that transformed your heart and the power moves that reshaped your story. Share the moments when you said enough is enough, when you chose yourself over the chaos, and how that fierce choice set you free. This is your space to be raw, real, and radiant. Your voice matters because every story of rising, breaking free, and glowing up inspires another queen to claim her throne. If this feminine reset ignited something in you, like, subscribe, and share it with your tribe. Surround yourself with warriors who remind you daily of your worth, your fire, and your unapologetic shine. Together, we build a sisterhood where self-love isn't optional, it's the foundation. Remember, you are the queen of your story. Own your rules like the crown they are. Protect your peace like the treasure it is. Keep glowing fiercely, boldly, and without apology. The world needs your light now more than ever, so shine unapologetically and keep rewriting your love story with power and grace. With all my love and fierce energy, I'm rooting for you. Until next time, keep rising, keep glowing, and keep being the unstoppable queen you were born to be. Let's cut the cute and get straight to it. He was never your soulmate, sis. He was your wake-up call in a fitted cap. You didn't meet the one, you met the lesson. The universe doesn't play fair, it plays smart. And when you ignore the signs, it sends a man who feels like home but burns like hell. Welcome, radiant rebels, to the realest, most unfiltered session you didn't know you needed. Today, we're not